about to show you the most epic barrels out of bond diorama you've ever seen. Hey everyone, my name's David and welcome to Endure Models. This is our first video on this channel and we are kicking off with a bang. So get ready, strap in and let's dive into Middle Earth. So as you know from The Hobbit, the dwarves get captured by Thranduil's elves, but Bilbo escapes by using the ring to turn invisible. Bilbo then rescues them and presents them with a plan to hide in empty barrels to travel downstream to Lake Town. The main aim was to create a heavily wooden and rocky landscape but with sufficient open spaces so the board could be playable. The board is 6 feet in length and split into 2 sections. We started with a base layer of foam and then gradually layered blocks of insulation foam, increasing the height because we knew we had the battlements and the gatehouse at the top. I honestly thought this was the coolest scene in the Desolation of Smaug. The fighting between the orcs and the elves downstream just had me hooked. Legolas was also doing what he does best, and that's killing orcs. First up was a plan, which meant diving into my Middle-earth books. For those that don't know, my godfather Keith is the other half of this channel. He has helped me for years with recreating some of our favourite scenes from the films. You will be seeing more of him in the future. Part of the research was a holiday that Keith went on to Cumbria, taking lots of pictures of real whitewater rivers and streams. We think it's really important to get a realistic effect that you get real-world images and experiences. A large number of our trees are handmade because ready-made trees are often quite expensive. So we made many of them from scratch using wire. For this particular board we used multi-stranded copper wire, however recently we've also used florist's wire. The first major problem the dwarves faced was the barred gate out of Mirkwood, so we knew we had to build this in. The first section of the board is built on a 2x2 MDF board, and this is what holds the gatehouse. We used foam board for the battlements, however in reflection making thin battlements out of foam board does not work well because the card ends up peeling away from the foam. So after this we graduated from foam board to grey foam. The battlements required constant re-watching of the film over and over, and that was our main source of reference for this. We wanted to get multiple angles of the Mirkwood boundary, the walls and the gate. Once we were happy with the build and the base structure in place, we moved on to painting. When it comes to painting, this was the first build where we didn't do everything by brush. We spray painted the whole model first with an undercoat of black. All of our sprays are Liquitex sprays and they come from Cassart, and I've actually got some right here to show you. This is a neutral grey, which are absolutely incredible and shows just why this brand has always been at the forefront of acrylic colour. Firstly, they don't melt your XPS foam, which is a massive win for terrain builders, and secondly you can get a range of beautiful colours to merge and use for the desired look and style. We ended up using a mixture to get the final desired effect. After the spraying was done, the dry brushing took place, adding final details to the rock faces. With the water rapids and river being the main feature of this board, we knew we really needed it to look the part. To create the waterfalls we used bathroom sealant, so we first put the various rocks in place on the board where there was going to be bits of rapid to ensure there was a path for them to flow through. Any gaps were filled in with transparent bathroom sealant, and then we poured the realistic water downstream, allowing it to flow naturally. The rapids and the flowing water was made by dry brushing and stippling with white paint. After trying a few different products, we found the realistic water from Woodland Scenics to be the best. There is a temptation to pour all the realistic water down all in one go, especially with it being like a downstream board. However, this can create pockets of water that never really dry. So we found therefore it's important to do small, thinner layers of water. It was really interesting watching the behind the scenes footage from the DVDs because it talked a lot about how they actually filmed the scene. They essentially created a massive water ride for the actors in barrels. Keith and I wanted to make it as realistic as possible, so when you looked at it you felt like it had come straight out of the film set and you could almost see yourself there.
I think that was possibly the most fun I've ever had on a film set.
There's a moment when the orcs are scrambling over a log across the stream and the dwarves begin to cut it down. This was a detail I knew I wanted to include, so we literally found a real twig that was roughly the right size to fit across the stream, and we used that. If we were to do it all again, I would want to make sure that we didn't end up with the deep pools of water behind the waterfalls that didn't end up drying, but I think they actually turned out okay in the end. Finally, adding the details for the foliage, all of which come from Woodland Scenics. And this is probably one of my favourite parts of the build. This was allowing us to create the realistic forest-like terrain, which included flowers, ivy, bushes, shrubs, and plenty of greenery. Here you can see Keith adding some PVA glue to the battlements and then adding layers of foliage around the rocks. The flowers and the ivy we use come from a company called Mini Nature, often picked up at model railway shows and available online at multiple sites. I'll put a link in the description for you guys. One of my personal favourite features of this board is being able to stand at the end and look upstream to the gatehouse. It really creates a very 3D effect with a lot of depth, and I love that we managed to create that. The outside of the board was obviously insulation foam and the edges were painted black. However, we found moving it and taking it to showcases and events, this was easily chipped, so we ended up adding a thin strip of foam board just to protect the board from being chipped. This also allows it to look neater and avoid having to touch it up every time. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit the thumbs up and that subscribe button. We've got plenty more Middle-earth goodness to come, including Rivendell and Lake Town, as you can see behind me. So we're super excited to release these videos. Make sure your notifications are on. If you've got any thoughts, leave them in the comments. I can't wait to build this community and continue on this journey. Until then, I'll see you in the next video.